Hello everyone, Science Viking here, and it's time to begin a brand new project. I know at the end of the System Shock 2 finale, I said that the next project wouldn't be coming out until next week, but I looked at that video, and it was 21 minutes long, and that included the time that I spent talking over the credits, and I decided that's just not enough content to be the only thing that I upload today. So I bumped the next project forward a week so that the first episode of the new project comes out on the same day as the last episode of the old project. And that new project is Myth 2 Soulblighter. Those of you who've been watching this channel for a long time, if you exist, will remember that one of the first projects I ever did was playing through Myth the Fallen Lords. Well, it's been a couple of years, I've done a number of projects in the interim, but I am finally back to play the sequel. Now, this game actually has a pre-rendered cutscene that plays when you play the game for the first time after installing. So, let's watch that cutscene together. And this also plays the Bungie logo, assuming it doesn't crash. Yep, this game is made by the same people who made Halo. This is something they did before Halo, obviously. This is... part of this is kind of a... I guess rehash is the wrong word. Recap is the word I'm looking for of the events of the first game. But in a very stylized kind of way. All of the audio so far is actually harvested from the previous game. And if you pay attention and you're familiar with the first game, you'll realize a lot of the things that are happening are all of the things that we're seeing are events that happened in the first game. Like the final fight with Balor that took me several attempts to finally get right on camera. Myth 2 Soulblighter. What does all this mean? Well, we'll find out as we go along. So, let's start a new game. If you have this game or have played it before, you may notice the menu looks different. Well, I actually have a couple of fan-made patches installed with some extra features like higher resolution and some other changes, as well as making the game run better on newer machines. I'll actually post a link in the description to the website where I got all of the mods that I'm using in case anyone has this game and wants to check them out. But let us begin at the very beginning.
Monday, August 25th, near Willow Creek. Finally, a break from this incessant marching. We have been on the move since first light, and the men are becoming weary from the difficult trek through these dense woods. Kruniak, our commander, insists we keep these pauses to a minimum if we are to reach the town of Willow Creek before midday. It was only yesterday that we entered the town of Tallow, seeking rest after a month spent patrolling the southern reaches of the Wild River. But our respite was cut short when the mayor beseeched us to investigate reports of grave robbing around the villages just north of Forest Heart. Kruniak, who seems to be more interested in political maneuvers than military ones, agreed to look into the matter. I am sure it will prove to be yet another unfounded rumor, no doubt caused by wild dogs searching for their evening meal in the newly turned earth of a graveyard. Alas, that is the life of a soldier these days, chasing hoodlums and thieves and making sure the nobility get their due. I have only a few moments before I must go. Columns of black smoke have been spotted rising above the woods between us and Willow Creek. Our commander is rallying the troops for the final leg of our morning journey.
Well, that turned around fast. I'm sure it's fine. It's nothing. It's fine. Oh, there's columns of smoke billowing up from the village we were supposed to visit. Also, yeah, this game actually has pre-rendered cutscenes. Myth 1 also had them, but I couldn't get them to play, so I wasn't able to include them in the Let's Play. But I finally found a workaround so that we can actually see them. And now the mission begins. And another thing that was added in Myth 2 by comparison to Myth 1 is this mission objectives screen, which shows you what your objective is for the mission, and also you have hints both generally about the game and one specific to each mission. So, in this case, our objective is, the village of Willow Creek is under attack. Destroy all of the attackers and secure the center of town. So basically, just kill all the bad guys and we win. And there are also hints specific to each level. So in this case, you can stop your warriors from charging to give your bowmen more time to shoot. Hit spacebar to stop them. It's a pretty basic hint because it's early in the game. And a single warrior will have a hard time against a ghast. It's safer to take ghasts out from a distance. And these are ghasts. They are enemies for this level. They're not very dangerous, but the main issue with ghasts is if they hit you, if they hit an enemy, if they hit a unit, that unit is stunned for a little while. And that gives them a chance to attack again, so it's very easy for ghasts to stun lock you. But they don't do very much damage, and they don't have very much health. So the trick is pretty much just take them out from a distance. Now, we have 3 units at our disposal. We have Bowmen, which can fire arrows at people. Also, unlike the archers in the first game, they have flaming arrows, which do this. So, flaming arrows will set the ground on fire for a brief time after they land, and as a consequence of the ground being anything that's standing in that fire takes continuous damage. Though the enemy's AI will usually get them to move out of the area that's on fire, but flaming arrows can actually be useful for zoning as well. You also have dwarves. Dwarves throw grenades. They do pretty good damage. They also inflict splash damage, which can make them good for crowd control. But the downside is dwarves are slow, they're fragile, and the main downside is the dwarf AI isn't really very good at accounting for the splash damage that their attacks inflict. So, in a number of missions, your dwarves are a greater threat to your soldiers than the enemy is. The other thing you'll see, I had this dwarf walk up here, and I'll do it again because I really should have waited until I was finished talking before doing it. So the other thing is the dwarf carries 4 satchel charges. They're kind of like mines. You can drop one, except they won't explode when an enemy walks over them. What happens is, once this is hit by either an explosive attack or fire, it will detonate to do increased damage. So a dwarf could place a satchel charge and then throw a grenade to detonate the satchel charge, inflicting increased damage. This can be useful in certain situations where you set a group of satchel charges down as a trap and then lure the enemy into it. And then we have warriors. They're just your basic melee units. The warriors, the melee units in this game, you pretty much use them when something has gone wrong a lot of the time. You frequently try to take the enemy out with your ranged units, and then under certain circumstances you end up having to resort to melee. Though the other main function of melee units is that you can use them to harass the enemy's melee units. But that doesn't come into play as often as you might think it does. So in this level we're fighting against ghasts, and remember, ghasts can stun lock things, so warriors aren't going to be terribly useful in this mission. So I need to keep them around so that they don't end up getting killed, but now for our first real confrontation. I'll let the bowmen take out this group, and I'll let the dwarf handle the other group. I have in the past beaten this level both using only my bowman and using only my dwarf. However, that takes significantly longer than doing it the normal way, so I'm not going to do that this time. Alright. And we already have our first instance of friendly fire, and it's from an archer, actually. Yeah, the AI in this game isn't very good at preventing friendly fire. this game is really all about micromanagement. You have to control your units very carefully, and so it actually requires quite a bit of concentration to do effectively, because well, the AI tends to not only fail to do things that it needs to do, but actually do things that are counterproductive, like injuring your own units if you just leave it to their own devices. Also, unlike, say, StarCraft, there's generally no way to get additional units. The units you have at the beginning of a mission are all you get, and so you have to use them effectively. So losing even one guy is actually a significant loss. Okay, but for the most part, this is just kind of the training wheels mission. Like I said, I have on more than one occasion beaten this mission with a single unit, so it's not terribly difficult, but the idea is this is the mission that's intended to just get your feet wet, let you get a hang of the controls and that kind of thing.
Yes, sir.
Bowmen are not usually this effective. The downside of ranged units in this game is that they don't do very much damage, and melee units tend to be durable, and so the idea is you can't really use your archers to take down the enemy's melee forces, because it will just take forever, because the enemy melee units tend to have a lot of hit points. Also, unlike the previous game, this game introduced one species of melee units that are completely immune to arrows. So, generally the general way that this works is it's kind of like rock, paper, scissors. So melee units are good at taking out ranged units like archers, and the enemy has their own archer equivalent later in the game. And then, so melee units are durable and can just endure the damage inflicted by ranged units while they get into melee range and kill them. Explosives units inflict large amounts of damage and inflict splash damage, so they can take out melee units relatively easily. So our explosives units are dwarves, and the enemies will get their explosive units later in the game. And then ranged units are good at taking out explosives units, because you'll notice the bowmen have a significantly longer range than the dwarf does, so they can just take artillery units out from outside the artillery unit's range. So like I said, it creates this kind of rock, paper, scissors mechanic. However, in practice, it ends up being a bit more complicated than that, because situationally, every kind of unit can take out every other kind of unit. It just comes down to how exactly you use them. But that's the basics of the combat, and much like Halo, the core combat is relatively simple, but it has very complicated... depending on the different situations, it plays out in a lot of different ways. Alright, so we want to get to the center of town, because basically we're trying to provoke as many of the enemy as possible to get them to attack us so that we can kill them. Okay, that gas is going to come around the corner too close for these bowmen to take it out, but the dwarf can handle it. Ghasts they can be dangerous under the right circumstances, but they're mostly intended to just kind of be a tutorial enemy, and even then, honestly, the actual developers just don't use ghasts very efficiently. No, you go here. I probably will upload a bonus video of myself doing this level with just one unit.
Make a hole.
In fact, actually, I think about it, I'm gonna do both. For the actual Let's Play, I'm just gonna do a normal. I'm just gonna do the level normally.
Yes, sir.
But I'm also gonna upload a video in which I do this with only bowmen, and a different video where I do this with only a dwarf. Just to show that, yes, you really can do that. But, yeah, now, this is the one point where things can get kind of challenging. This is actually a common thing in this game, where when things get challenging is when they get hectic. Where so much is happening at once that it's easy to miss something. In this case, we can get into situations where the enemies are attacking us from all directions at once. And so you have to think quickly and prioritize your targets to make sure you take the enemies out. Also, despite appearances, this is not an escort mission. You do not need to keep any of the civilians alive, and as you may have noticed, there's not even a penalty for accidentally killing them. Which is good, because their AI is worse than everyone else's. They're constantly running into the line of fire and getting themselves killed. Alright, that gas is rolling up. They are, though, because you don't have to keep them alive, they end up being actually more helpful than harmful to you, because the ghasts will attack them just as much as they'll attack my units, but, so the peasants just end up serving as meat shields, essentially. As you can see, one of my my bowmen managed to team up to take down a villager that they're supposed to be protecting. Hey, he got between them and the ghast. It's his own fault. And now there's a brief lull in the combat before the enemy starts coming through in real numbers. So we've taken out all of the wandering, aimless ghasts, and so after a brief moment, they'll start showing up in larger groups. That's kind of the final challenge of this mission. Any minute now. Come on, guys. Oh, ambient sounds from the tavern. I actually never really noticed that. But yeah, you can hear people. So the people in the tavern are just kind of partying and hanging out as their village is being attacked by zombies. Also, you may remember from the introduction, they were talking about reports of grave robbing. And now, considering the fact that zombies exist in this setting, you might understand why grave robbing would be a serious concern. Because, yep, necromancy exists.
Ready.
Okay.
Get away from me!
The bowmen should be able to take that group out by themselves, but see, so they're now attacking in groups, and there's a second group already on its way up. I'll let the bowmen handle this group. Yeah, the one thing the bowmen are good at is... I just blew up the outhouse. Is gradually retreating away while continuing to fire at an enemy. That's one thing their AI actually does pretty well, where they all move in different directions to gradually spread out away from a melee unit while shooting at it. This only works, though, against units that move slower than bowmen. And you'll notice warriors move faster than bowmen do. So a lot of the time, just running away isn't an option for your ranged units. Okay, that was one group. There's going to be more. Just a question of how long it takes for them to show up. It's been a little while since I did this. I don't remember the exact timing. Also, there's a helpful mini-map, and green dots on the mini-map are units I control. Blue dots are units I don't control, but that are on my side. In this case, that's the villagers, but it can also be... it can also be actual allied units in some levels. And red dots, which there aren't any of right now, are enemies. Now, in this level, we start with the entire minimap revealed. In later levels, we won't get that. I'll show you how that works when we get there. But a unit will only appear as a red dot if it's within the sight range of at least one of my units, as we're seeing now. The ghasts all seem to be... I just said it and it stopped being true. I was going to say the ghasts all seem to be coming from the same direction. Okay. Blow that group away. Or that one away. We can blow away that two. And... there we go. Okay, now we have another group coming from the other side. And actually, you guys should concentrate on this one. Yeah, even this part where they start ganging up on you isn't really that hard at this difficulty setting. And you'll notice that grenade took longer to explode than they usually do. That's another concern with dwarves. Their grenades are kind of unpredictable. We'll see more of that in the next level. But, yep, we won! So, congratulations, you beat the first level. You killed 63 ghasts. Yeah, it's not that difficult of a level. It's really just helping you get your feet wet. And yeah, the dwarf inflicted the majority of the damage. The bowman came in second, and the warriors barely did anything. That's actually going to be relatively common in this game. Anyway, we finished the first level, but the first level is really short, so that's not going to be the end of the episode. Let's get on to the next level.
Monday, August 25th, Willow Creek. I can hardly believe what I have just witnessed. As we approached the village of Willow Creek, we saw what appeared to be a band of ruffians terrorizing the peasantry. If only it had been so. We rushed to the fray and were able to save a handful of people from the wretched claws of the walking dead. Although many of the surviving townsfolk fled the area, those that remained were intent on seeing to our needs and mending our wounds. One man said he was tending his livestock when he saw creatures spill out from an overgrown trail that leads to an ancient nearby cemetery. Another villager, a small girl not yet old enough for the fields, said that she had seen brigands take her father and a few others in the direction of that trail. Kruniak immediately sent scouts to scour the area near the trail for the missing villagers. They returned just before sundown to tell us there were some men holding captives at the cemetery. Upon hearing the news, the survivors begged us to help free their kinsmen. We take our leave in a few minutes.
Okay, so we saved the actual village from zombies, but apparently some people from that village have been captured and dragged away, and now it's time to rescue them. Not only that, but there are apparently living people who have sided with the zombies. That's going to be an issue. And so for this mission, our objective is somewhere within the cemetery there are captive villagers, locate them and free them, and then escort them to safety. So this one actually kind of is an escort mission. And, more hints, putting your bowmen in a long line concentrates their fire and gives them all a clear shot. Rain may extinguish dwarven grenades. Barriers can be cut through as well as blown up. If you're desperate, double-click on them with a bowman to cut through them with his knife. Because yes, the bowmen actually have a melee weapon, it just isn't very good. Graves are best left undisturbed. Always good advice. It's easier if you don't let any cemetery guards flee to sound the alarm. And if you're having trouble preventing the guards from fleeing, attack them from more than one direction. Okay.
Sir, they're holding the villagers captive near the back of the cemetery.
Right, let's move.
So that bit about the long line is, the default formation that your units will get into is the short line. Now, in the short line, you'll notice 4 of the bowmen are in front and 2 are in the back. And the ones in the back kind of have an obstructed view, so they can't shoot clearly. Switching to formation number 2, the long line formation. Now, they're all in one fixed line, one long line, and so everybody has a clear shot. The formations are tied to number keys, and you can also click on these icons down here. Each one indicates a different formation. And we have 2 dwarves. Now, there are some issues surrounding dwarven grenades. Every dwarven grenade has a chance to be a dud. So if you throw it, it will just fail to explode. See, that one, the flame went out in midair. That was a dud. Now, in rain, the chance of being a dud is significantly higher. See, now we've had, of the 4 grenades we've thrown in total, 3 have been duds. There's always a possibility of a dud, but rain makes them more likely. The other issue, see we have these ghasts coming through the water here. Well, I want to grenade them. But the issue is, the grenades are actually Molotov cocktails, which are powered by flame. So even if the flame hadn't gone out before they reached the ground, they can't work in water. If the grenade lands in water, it will go out and fail to explode. An unexploded grenade will behave like a satchel charge. It's essentially a landmine that will just take out whatever hits it. Or that will be detonated when another explosion hits it. So, this level is already going to be substantially more challenging just because of the weather. The rain means that the dwarves are significantly less reliable.
Yes.
Though, as an illustration of one of the cooler things about this game, so if a grenade lands in water, it will go out and it'll fail to detonate. But if a grenade directly strikes an enemy that is standing in water, it will still explode. Because it didn't hit the water, it hit an enemy that was standing in water. It's just kind of an impressive level of attention to detail from the physics engine for this game. That kind of detail within the physics of this game makes a lot of things more interesting. Alright. And so far we're just dealing with ghasts. That will change. Alright. I should separate the archers from everyone else and keep them in a long line. Frequently, you'll see me splitting my units up into 3 groups: melee, explosives, and ranged. Because you generally want all of your melee units to be doing the same thing, all of your ranged units to be doing the same thing, and all of your artillery units to be doing the same thing. But you don't necessarily want those 3 groups to be doing the same thing as each other. Also, I have plenty of fire arrows. I want to test something. Does fire completely fail in rain, or is it just harder? Yep, fire is useless in rain. That's what I thought, but I realized I haven't tried it in a really long time, so I couldn't remember if it really didn't work.
Yes.
So yeah, as you can tell, the challenge rating has been upped a little bit.
Ready.
Okay. And this is the entrance to the graveyard. You'll see it's guarded. And it's guarded by these guys, brigands. Brigands are warriors. They're just warriors. They have all the same abilities as the warriors on my side. They're just not on my side.
We're moving.
The lore for them is basically that they're brigands, they're bandits, they're basically hired thugs that fight for whoever is paying them, and so they're in service to evil. Now, the thing is, if we get the enemy's attention, they'll run away and they'll sound the alarm. And if they sound the alarm, a whole bunch more enemies will show up, and that will be a very large challenge. So we need to get to where the captives are being held without sounding the alarm, if possible. So the first step in doing that is... So if we attack them from outside the graveyard, they'll retreat into the graveyard and sound the alarm. So we sneak around, exploiting the fact that, like most evil minions, they don't have any peripheral vision.
Yes, sir. We're moving.
And circle around.
Yes.
And now we're between them and the alarm, so we can just force them to fight. Now the thing about brigands is, like I said, they're fundamentally the same as warriors. They have the same stats and everything. However, they cannot, however, there are 6 of us and 1 of them. But you'll notice that they didn't even do the amount of damage you would expect even with the numerical advantage, you would have expected the brigands to do more damage than that. Well, there's a reason for that, which is when a unit is hit partway through its attack animation, it's stunned for a second and its attack animation is basically canceled. So the numerical advantage actually provides a huge advantage in terms of your ability to defeat the enemy, because you can stun them out of attacking. So the numerical advantage kind of works defensively. Now you may see I'm laying down some satchel charges. I usually can't avoid setting off the alarm when the enemy is... Actually, I want to reposition this one. Also, dwarves can pick up satchel charges that are on the ground, so once you've already laid them down, you're not stuck with it. A dwarf can essentially pick them up and reposition them. But I usually end up triggering the alarm. So the plan is that I'm setting up a little trap outside the mausoleum outside the graveyard for the enemies that come after us when the alarm is set off. Of course, this hinges on the dwarves successfully detonating the satchel charges. If it weren't raining, I could detonate the satchel charges with a fire arrow, but I can't do that because it's raining.
Yes, sir.
Now, there's one particular guard that always ends up sounding the alarm. I want to see if I can avoid letting him do that. It's this guy. If he sees that the villagers are gone, he will sound the alarm.
Yes.
So, I want to see if I can get around behind him too and prevent him from... Oh, and we triggered a ghast. And that is the stun effect that the ghasts can inflict.
Yes.
Yep, see how he's purple? Yeah, he's stunned. And see, the stun actually lasts for quite a while. And there's another ghast. I believe the ghasts cannot sound the alarm.
Yes.
Alright, so the warrior's just gonna...
Yes, sir.
So I need to see if I can circle around and ambush. that one guy. But first I need to wait a little bit. Oh, there are two of that guard that, right. This is probably not going to work because I'm going to have to deal with the gas at the same time that the guard is in position to be killed. Really, this comes down to the question of how much peripheral vision does this guard actually have? Okay, wait. Just wait a moment. Wait for the guys to recover from being stunned.
Got it.
And
Yes.
and those are the people who would be
We're moving.
initiated by sounding the alarm. And honestly, avoiding triggering the alarm is just going to make this take too long. So I'm not going to make you guys sit through all of that. Instead, and I can see on my mini-map, they're being attacked by something, but it's a gas, so it's not a big deal. So attack the pillars to cut them down to free these people. Okay. And now they get to retreat.
Yes, sir.
And while they're retreating, I'm going to see if I can ambush the guard who's supposed to notice that they've been cut free. So this guy's going to come up. He's going to see that the cells are empty, and he's going to sound the alarm. I'm going to try to ambush him before he manages to sound the alarm. Let's see if I can do that.
Got it.
Okay. Now we go through this way.
Yes, sir.
And see if we can get him to fight. Nope! Nope, no luck. The alarm has been sounded. Kill the one brigand and just retreat.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't believe I've ever avoided getting the alarm set off. I always end up having to fight this group once the villagers are free. So now we just need to run away and basically... these villagers will, on their own, walk back to the entrance of the map and escape. What we need to do is basically just stall for time until they achieve that. So the warriors just need to keep running. There are quite a few brigands. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there are 12 of them with 6 of our warriors.
Got it.
And unfortunately, the brigands do move faster than the villagers. They will catch up to the villagers eventually if given time, so we need to stall for time. The good news is we don't need to stall for very much time because they're only slightly faster than the villagers, and the villagers start with quite a bit of a head start. And the mission ends when the villagers escape. It doesn't end when we kill the enemies.
Sir? Yes.
Alright.
Got it. We're moving.
Unfortunately, it looks like the brigands are not going to walk across my satchel pit.
Stand clear.
The enemy AI is not programmed to notice satchel charges, but in this case I just baited them in kind of the wrong way. And we only got a couple of them. Alright, warriors to the front, do your thing. The good news is the grenades are behaving themselves really well. Not a thing you usually get to say about grenades. And the other thing is that since the enemy is attacking us in a really disorganized pattern... Okay, we just need to take out this one brigand before he kills one of our dwarves. Casualty. Okay, and we lost one bowman, but otherwise we got him. Because the enemy attacked us in a very loose formation, whereas my warriors were in a very tight formation, we were able to kill them all relatively, well, my warriors were in a very loose formation. They attacked us in a very loose formation, while my warriors were in a very tight formation. We were able to defeat them, even though we were outnumbered, because each time, basically, so my warriors were able to gang up on one brigand, and then move to the next brigand and gang up on him. So you specifically really benefit from your melee units being in a tight formation. Though it's a little more complicated than that, because being in a tight formation makes them susceptible to explosives, because more units will be hit by the splash damage, whereas being in a loose formation makes them more susceptible to other melee units. So it's yet another trade-off. And we're just going to stand our ground here in case
Ready.
more people show up.
Ready.
But Outside of the one fatality, this mission went pretty well. And where were you guys a minute ago? If you had actually been with us, we wouldn't have lost somebody. Well, that would just make things too easy, I suppose. Let's give the villagers a moment to finish leaving the map. And now the ghasts are gradually ambling in our direction. Let's get the warriors out of the way. The bowmen can easily take out this small group of ghasts. Also, it's fortunate that we don't need to worry about units running out of ammunition. And we won again. We did lose somebody this time, but our kill ratio was 22-1. And yeah, another part of the summary screen is heroes. Heroes are just units that have survived numerous battles and gotten numerous kills. And unfortunately, the bowman who died was actually one of the bowmen who was in the first level. Because the game actually keeps track of that. You'll notice each unit has a unique name, and it keeps track of what that unit has done and which battles that unit has participated in. Anyway, we've done the first 2 levels. This is going to be the end for this part. Thank you all for watching. I love you all, and I will see you next time.